Hello, everyone. Welcome to SharePoint Power Hour. I'm Laura Rogers, and I've got Joelle Jobson here on audio. Probably
Hello.
Say hi.
Hey, everybody.
Last week was the big SharePoint conference, and so we're sort of recovering from that now. It was, I almost didn't feel like, I hate to say it, didn't feel like doing Power Hour because I've just been kind of, email triage, and, the kids are home now. It's summertime, so it's just been kind of crazy around here. But yeah, welcome to SharePoint Power Hour. This is our weekly show, Wednesdays at 11 Central. I did not send out a newsletter today because it was just so, just kind of off the cuff. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do it about until about half an hour ago. So the fun thing about Power Hour is that it's live. You never know what's going to happen. And we've got this Slack channel that we use for chat during Power Hour. We have, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you have a little in the description below. You have a link to iwmentor.slack.com, which is where we have our chat, and a link if you've never joined before to request to join, to be invited. And we chat throughout, ask questions, have discussions, and get to know each other. And last week at the SharePoint conference in Las Vegas, a lot of us got to meet in person. It was a lot of fun. It's nice to meet humans, right? So I will probably talk a little bit about kind of some exciting things that you saw that they announced too. But today's topic in Power Hour is going to be converting to PDF. Now, 2 weeks ago, when I was about to do Power Hour, I sent out a poll, a little survey that morning of kind of what you thought a good topic would be. And the first choice that had like double what, all the other ones was form logic and Power Apps. So that's what I did Power Hour about 2 weeks ago. But the second pretty high votes choice was converting files to PDF. So I'm going to do Power Hour about converting files to PDF, and we'll kind of just start with some basics and just do something super simple, and then kind of see if we can move on to, kind of how complex we can get during Power Hour. So are any of you in the chat? Were any of you in my big Power Apps and Flow workshop? You got to meet Chris, my husband, who's never on Power Hour, but you got to see him in person too. And so the two of us were up on stage. He was helping answer questions, and it's good times. We crammed it all in one day, Joelle. Okay.
That's awesome.
So, do what?
I said I saw the questions coming in too.
Just like you did last year when you were on the stage.
Yeah. Good times.
Yep. And Todd Bleeker was in there too. He was back in like 2003 or 2004 when I first went to SharePoint training. I went to admin training. That was a long time ago. Bill English was the admin instructor, and Todd Bleeker was on the dev side. He was the developer instructor for SharePoint for developers. So he was just on the other side of the hall. But so I met him a really long time ago, and he came up and gave Chris and I those box lunches, and brought them to us up on the stage because I was like, Todd Bleeker, what are you doing bringing me food? It was really cool. So it was really sweet of him to be in there, and I hadn't seen him in a long time. Anyway,
Very cool.
All right, so I will share my desktop, and let's see if I have a library in SharePoint here called Policies, my company policies. And I do have a blog post that I wrote a while back that is using a button right there in a library in a column to trigger a flow. So this is the library that I used to write that blog post about triggering a flow with a button. So that's what that is. That is not what we're demoing today. We're demoing converting a file to a PDF. So a good example is just going to be company policies. You have company policies that might need to be routed around for an approval process. So once they're approved, then you would want them to be converted to a PDF, right? That's a good simple example to start with. So what I'm going to do is, let me maximize this screen, is I found that the trigger for just the selected item, the one where you select an item and you run a flow, is a little bit buggy when you start from within the flow interface. Sometimes it just doesn't end up showing here for some reason. So I found that when I start from this screen in SharePoint and create a flow, that is actually, they're more consistent and they work when you do it that way. Just when you're creating the flow for the first time, if you want to get triggered, the trigger, specifically the one trigger called for a selected item. So it says post message to Microsoft Teams for selected file. You really just need to do any one that says for a selected file. So I picked the request manager approval for a selected file. That's actually a good one. I'll just create the flow. And then this is a good one to use as an example for converting it to a PDF after the manager approves it, right? So we can just take this one and run with it. So now I have this flow and it's called request manager approval for selected file. Let's see what it does. So I select a file. Let me see. I'll just rename this and PDF just to make sure. So whatever file I select, it goes and gets the metadata about that file. It gets my profile of whoever I am, gets my manager. And then this little parallel branch it put in here, it just means that if I don't have a manager, if it fails, if get manager fails, it's going to go send me a notification. So that's and that's just built in this out of the box flow, and then it'll stop. All right. So what we're going to do is it's going to get my manager, and I'm logged into this tenant, this pretend world where I'm not the CEO and I have a manager. So this is the Wonderlaura tenant. And then I'm going to start an approval, and it's going to send it to whoever my manager is. And then it's going to start just a regular approval action. And I'll say I want the requester to be whoever triggered the flow. So that will be for a selected file, just the user ID of whoever triggered it. So that way the requester is not whoever created the workflow, it's whoever triggers the flow. And then yes, I do want notifications. Okay, so the magic with the PDF. So after the approval process happens and response is equal to approve, then what do you want to happen? So it's got these built-in emails where it informs the requester of approval. I'll just delete that. And I'll just leave the inform requester of rejection. That's actually that's actually going to me, the currently logged in user, which that's fine. It's going to let me know it got rejected. Okay. So then if they approve it, then I want to convert it to a PDF. So I have the trick to the PDF thing. If I just type PDF here, there is one that exists, this Word Online action. Last time I looked, which was just a couple of weeks ago, the only way you could get this to work was if you had a specific hyperlink to a specific file that you hard-coded into the workflow, which is really dumb because when would you ever not want that to be dynamic and just converting just one specific file that has a specific file name? So that one is in preview. And so now the thing about Power Hour is this is just what's in the product right now. So if you're watching this Power Hour, this is May 29th, 2019. If you're watching this like 6 months from now, a year from now or more, this is probably all completely different now. So take it with a grain of salt. But this is the way it is right now today. So Word Online's not the one we want. We want the one that's OneDrive. So I'll just narrow it down to OneDrive for business actions, and then I can search for PDF. We don't have, that's awesome. Convert file. It's not called convert to PDF. It's just called convert file using path. So you've got convert file and convert file using path. So convert file means that you need to know the ID of that file, that specific file, and using path means you need to know the full path, like the URL to that file. So, and when you use the convert, the only thing in here is PDF right now. So PDF's the only thing that you can do to convert it. All right, so I need to know the unique identifier of the file that I want to convert. So let's see, I can just type identifier, ID. All right, for a selected file, it doesn't give me the identifier, which is why I did this next action called get file properties, which gives me all the information, metadata about that selected file. So then I can do identifier. So this is going to take whatever file I selected and convert it to PDF. So then that PDF is just, it's going to be in OneDrive. So it needs to be in OneDrive. So this is not going to work. Last time I checked, it's not going to work to just take an identifier of a file that's over in SharePoint and convert it and use the convert to PDF. So this will most likely error out. So let me, I'll save that, and I'm going to run it once and just show you that's going to error out. I need to log in as Garth Fort here. Let me get this other window open. Garth Fort is the manager. So, all right, so I'll go ahead and I saved it, and I'm going to trigger it, and then while I'm triggering it, I'll go log in as the manager. So I have this, here's my library. Make sure and refresh it. And I guess just let me know if there are any questions. I have multiple windows open right now. Okay, let me make sure, I'm going to make sure and turn off content approval in this library, because what we're doing with this approval is unrelated to SharePoint content approval. We're just converting it to a PDF. So I don't want to get things all, anything confused in here. So I'm turning off this other content approval setting that I had turned on in this library, just to double check. Okay. And all right. So then I have to select a file. So I'll just say disciplinary actions. And then since my resolution is so big, the flow is kind of on this little extra little ellipsis, but it usually just shows across the top. So this one is request manager approval and PDF. That's the one I just created. So I'll go ahead and trigger that, and I'm logging in as Garth Fort, my quote manager. Let's see. We can go look at it running too. And it's still not going yet. Sometimes it's instantaneous. Sometimes it could be within a couple of minutes when we trigger this one. Dun, dun, dun. No, yeah, that's fine. Once I run it once, then I'll be able to just click the little test button and just run it again, and I won't have to worry about wondering when it's going to get triggered. All right, so I turned it on, right? Yeah. That's fun. It's always fun doing demos of these and just kind of waiting for it to run that first time. I feel like I should have just done like the manual button, because those are guaranteed to run when you click the manual button. Let's see, any questions so far? Oh, you're asking when people will get the slides from all the sessions from SPC. I have no idea. I know that the conference had us turn them all in, and I feel like they're going to send out an email to all the attendees with that information. So one of the questions I asked in here in Slack while we're waiting for this to trigger was, what kind of processes do you have where you need something to, oh, see, I didn't click continue. There we go. The first time you trigger a flow, it's going to have that little extra prompt. And so I wasn't paying attention. It had that little extra prompt that is basically telling the logged in user that it's going to run these services using their credentials, but it only does that the first time the person, just any logged in user, triggers a flow. So that's what I did. I clicked to run the flow, and then I wasn't paying attention to the little extra dialog box that it popped up. All right, so this is the manager is giving me this link. It's got a link to the file that I need to approve. I'll go ahead and approve it. I don't need to type anything. I'll just click submit. So that's the manager email that they got, and it was instantaneous. And then let's go see this. It will probably error out, I believe. Yeah, so it errored out. So that is what's not going to work, is that action. So you can't just take a file that's in SharePoint and see it says this file is not valid and try to use the convert file action. And you have to actually move the file or copy it over to OneDrive and then convert it. So that's what I was trying to demonstrate there. Okay, so now I'm editing my flow again. I'll go back into these to this little interface here. Oh, thanks. He said June 6th slides will be made available. Good to know. All right. All right. If they approve it, what do we want to happen? We don't just want to convert the file. We want to move the file over, not move it, but just at least make a copy of it over in OneDrive. So I need to go to my OneDrive for Business actions, and I'm going to do create file. So I can decide where I want to put it. Now, one of the negatives about OneDrive is if you have a user that's running this flow that has never initiated their OneDrive before, they've never used OneDrive. So you know how the very first time you go to OneDrive, it says your OneDrive is getting ready and you don't have access to it instantaneously as soon as you're a brand new user. It waits till you actually start to try to use it. So that's one of the negatives about these OneDrive actions, is that if you have new users that have never used their OneDrive before, there's at least going to be a delay on here, if not an error. I'm not positive about that. So just kind of keep that in mind. So I'm going to decide where in my OneDrive I want to create this file. You could just say the root of your OneDrive, or you could pick a specific folder. I'll just pick the root, keep it simple, and the file name, I want that to be the same as the file name coming from the original file. So let's see. I've got a lot of metadata in this one. So that's the name. And then let's see. We have to make sure that it has the extension too. So let's see, in here, folder path identifier is folder linked item modified. Name, policy date, God, so much metadata. I'm just double checking this. Okay, we're gonna use the file name. And then the content of the file, I'll just type content here. I have to get the file content. So there is no file content. All I have right now is I got the file properties, but I haven't gotten the file content yet. There is no file content to put in here. So that's another step that I have to add beforehand. So you notice how I'm working backwards per what it's needing from me. So I have to get the file content. So this is going to be SharePoint, get file content. Oh, there it is. Get file content. And that's actually the body of the file. And this is going to be the same site that I'm on. This is just the root. And what file is it? My identifier. That's my identifier of my file right here when I got the file properties. Again, the for a selected file trigger doesn't give you much. You always need to, if it's a file, you need to do get file properties after that trigger. And if it's an item, when you do for a selected item, you need to do get the item properties after that to get the metadata. So now I have the file content, and now I can create this file over in OneDrive. So see, now I have file content that I can add here. All right, so now I'll have a new file over in OneDrive, and then it says convert file. Then I need to convert the file that I just created over in OneDrive. So this file that I just created right here, this is the one that I need to convert. So I need that ID of that file. Let's see if this works. I have a few in here that I've created that I've already run and that I have as part of demos, but this one I'm just, of course, creating on the fly. So I'll just say, since I already triggered it once, I'm not going to go to SharePoint and re-trigger it. I'm just going to run my test. And then it's going to send an email to my manager again. And this one is, let's see, I'll go ahead and just go in his email and approve that. Same interface. So now you can see it's sort of waiting for him, and then it should yep, see there, it moved on to the next thing. And now it is doing something. Oh, look, got the file content, created the file, not converting the file correctly. So let's go see bad request. This is why we're working through it. Okay, so it says not acceptable. So remember I mentioned this a second ago. I mentioned that this might be wrong because it doesn't have an extension. See, I put the file name as disciplinary actions, but it didn't put the, .doc, .xls. So I actually need my file name needs to have the extension as part of it. So let me go back to this part is the one that was wrong. So I can't just put the name. I need the file name with extension. Let's see. And that's going to be in message timestamp title. So I'm looking through these pieces of metadata here. And I added, so this is the one that I use. That's not the one that I need because it's just the display name of the file. It's not the full file with the extension to it. Identifier ID. Folder, there it is. File name with extension. So that's the one that I need. I did that on purpose, as a demonstration of troubleshooting. Ed says, how did you figure that out? Well, I've got much experience, Ed, in breaking workflows. So I've had experiences in the past where the file name is clearly different than the file name with an extension. And so just in workflows, that will work differently depending on what you're trying to do. So if you're trying to actually create a file somewhere, it can't just create a file with no extension. So I'm running this again, and I'll go approve it again really quick. Wow, we've eaten up almost half an hour just doing the convert to PDF with a very simple workflow. All right, so that one ran successfully. What did it do? Oh my gosh, holy cow. The whole thing ran successfully. It created the file over in OneDrive, and disciplinaryactions.docx, and it converted the file. And so let's go see what's over in OneDrive. Let me go here and just go to, come on, stop it. OneDrive. Thanks, Lisa. I'm just now seeing your scroll up to F for file name with extension. Yeah, that had just so much metadata, and that library is a little overwhelming. See, this is the error one. See, the one with no extension. That's the one I can delete. And then this is the one, this is the disciplinary actions.docx now. So all it did was convert it. It didn't put a new file anywhere, right? So all it did was convert my file. So there's still another step that I have to do in my flow. So now that it's converted the file, I need to do something with, so it just gives me file content. So now I have file content here that I need to do something with. So then I'll go to my SharePoint actions and I'll do create file. So then I can create file. I'll go to my same little site here, and my path that I want to put it in my site, which is policies is my library. And there's no folder that I want it in. I just want it in the root of my policies library. And let me rename this, create file as PDF. And then the file name will be that same file name. Now I can just use this file name right here. So file name, that's the new one from it being converted. And then file content, that's the new PDF file content. See, that's that action convert file. So I saved it, and I'm going to run it yet again. Lisa says, will this ever work on files in SharePoint without having to copy to OneDrive? Hopefully, Lisa. But this is currently today. This is how it works. This is how you do it. So that's why I had that little sort of disclaimer that I said a few minutes ago of, this is probably going to be different in the future if you're watching this in the future. Okay, so I approved it. It goes through my next condition, creates the file, converts the file, creates the file as PDF. Now I should be able to go back to SharePoint, refresh my library, and look at that, disciplinary actions.pdf. Now I didn't create the PDF file in OneDrive. I just basically used the OneDrive to run the convert action. And now I have, it's just a test file. It doesn't have much in it. See, this is a very important staff discipline policy. So that's my that's my disciplinary actions, but that is my converted file. Yay. I have a feeling that this is one of those things that was just easier to do as a OneDrive action, and maybe gradually they're going to make it be a SharePoint action, but this was just sort of like a baby step at least to get there. I would think I would want to go delete this file from OneDrive after I'm done converting it, right? So let's see if we can. Last time I tried to do this, it didn't work when I tried to just delete that file I had been using. So let's see. I will add an action, because you don't want all these just random extraneous files just floating around in the OneDrive, right? I would think you kind of want to have that cleaned up. That's so true, Lisa. Okay, so which file do I want to delete? I want to delete this create file, this one that it created. So I have the ID of that file. All right, now I'm going to go just start this whole thing from scratch. So I saved that, make sure I saved it, and then I'll just go back to this screen. Yeah. And then I'll go just to a different file. So I've got my conflict of interest policy, and I'll go run that policy. Request manager approval and PDF. Bruce says, does the flow run with the user's permissions? It depends. I'm going to test this one and try and run it as another user and see if make sure it puts it in their OneDrive and not mine, the Flow Creator. So we'll test that too. And you don't have to have it ask them an extra question when they trigger the flow. That was just one of those inputs as part of the manual trigger. Okay, so this one's running. So then Garth got an approval request for the file. Now there are some Adobe actions. If you own Adobe, like a license for the Adobe eSign connector in here, or your company has Adobe eSign, the Adobe eSign connectors are really, really cool. They're really slick, and they will pass the file around for e-signature and then put it back together and it's got like 10 different actions you can do. It's really amazing. So this is just the free way of doing it. You think I should do a power hour about the Adobe? I don't know if enough people own it to see whether it's worth dedicating a power hour to it, because it's more limited audience. Okay, so this one succeeded. So that means it did delete the file. So that file would have been called conflict of interest. So I don't see any conflict of interest file in here. So that means it converted the file, moved it, copied it to the OneDrive, converted it, created the conflict of interest PDF file here, and deleted the one that was in the OneDrive. So nice and clean, right? Oh yeah, you do want me to show Adobe? Okay, we'll add that to the list of power hours. Let me make a note of that. Okay, so that was a flow that converts it to PDF. And so would you want maybe to email it to somebody also? What else, what other kind of things do you do? What other kind of business processes do you have where it converts to PDF? Yes, Lisa, it does. I believe it requires a Creative Cloud subscription. I'm not positive though. I have a customer that they gave me an account in their Creative Cloud, and so therefore I use those credentials to log in to authenticate to the Adobe service, to that connector when I'm creating the flow. So I believe it. Lisa Jo says, can we delete the doc that's in the library too? So yes, what you would do for that one is you would do a SharePoint delete file, and you would delete the one with basically that ID, that one that you selected. So I'll add that. So I'll go to SharePoint and delete file. Same site. And the identifier of the file I want to delete that's the one that I actually triggered from at the very beginning. Let me just type so many pieces of metadata. ID for a selected file. There's file identifier here, and there's also ID here. Should be the same thing. So that's the one that you would use to delete. So you're deleting the OneDrive document, and you're deleting the SharePoint document. Yes. Okay, so what was I doing? Oh yeah, the email. Would you want it to email it to somebody? Oh yeah, you might want to store the original with the PDF. So I have customers that like to kind of keep them all together. Now Microsoft did announce recently they're kind of revamping that whole document, the document set concept, and they're adding document set actions to Flow. Let's see if they're in there yet. Set. No, see those yet. But supposedly we're going to have document set actions pretty soon. Anyway, so what you could do is right now you could create a folder and put the document in there with the PDF. So that's what a lot of people like to do, is they like to keep them both together. So you can keep them both together. They're just alphabetically, they're listed next to each other. Or, it's totally up to you as to what your business process is. Sometimes you might want to convert something, like think about having a statement of work that you want to convert to PDF and send it to a customer. So I have this other statement of work library. Now, I wrote a blog post about, let me go pull that up, about using quick parts with Flow, Microsoft Flow and quick parts. I'll put that link in here. I'll put it in the general channel, because you can actually use this in conjunction with what you're doing with converting it to a PDF. You can create this file that's got quick parts in it, that's got actual metadata, and also convert that. So that one is going to be, let's see, let's go to that library. So I've got my statement of work library, and I want to generate a statement of work and generate a statement of work and convert it to a PDF and email it to the customer. So here's I'll show you that one. Is that one in here? Yeah, that's in here. Now this one is, so we have 20 minutes left. This isn't something that I can demo in 20 minutes, but I can show you some parts of it. Now that you understand the pieces and just the basics of just getting a regular file converted to PDF, this is kind of some fun that you could have with it. So I've got my customers, and this is something we went over in my big flow class that was 2 days long. I pick a customer, I've got the projects that we've been doing, and for this project, I'll say create a statement of work. And that's going to be, maybe I have a new project and I want a statement of work to be able to send to the customer. So I create statement of work, and this is just directly running a flow from the Power App. And then it is converting it and then giving it back to me. So this is metadata. This is just like in this blog post I wrote, it shows you how to do it. So this is metadata about that customer, and look, it took the hours that I had, you saw on the screen, and it's just, got the customer kind of interspersed here and there, but it actually generates this file, and then as long as you have the customer email address, the flow can automatically, you have it in some metadata somewhere, the flow can automatically email that to the customer as well. So let's see, that one, I might have had that one email it to me. Let me look really quick. Oh yeah, here it is. So this one is one that I just have it emailing it to me as part of the flow, just so you can kind of see the example of it generates the file in SharePoint, but it also sends it as an email attachment, just as the next step in the flow. Pretty cool, right? Haha. Okay, so let's see. That one will go back to SharePoint here. Okay, so the trick to the quick parts is that it has all this metadata. So then when you run the action that you're going to run an action that create the file. So you could trigger it, like say from a customer. So you're going to run the workflow. You need to have all the information. Maybe you want to trigger it from the project itself, because different projects have maybe different hours and different metadata. So trigger it from the project itself. The flow is going to create a file over in the library, over in the statement of work library. Just say, like, pick a project and trigger the flow from there. And then in the statement of work library, you have all these columns about the hours and the customer and all this information. So you create the file, but then you also, after it's just going to create a blank file, you can just make it, instead of just creating a blank file, if you want to actually use this sort of template, you can do a copy file. So I've got this statement of work example, and this is a template. You wouldn't ever want to delete this. So I have this file that it's copying and just creating a copy of it with just the name of the customer as part of the file name. And then the next step is that it's not automatically going to have the metadata. It's just going to be a copy of this exact empty file. Then the next step in the flow is going to be to update the file properties, where it puts all the metadata about that, maybe that customer and that project in all these columns. And then from there, then you actually have a document that has all the metadata filled in, like this one. So then when I have this document with all the metadata in all the right spots, then then that's the one that I want to create a file over in OneDrive after I get the metadata in it, right? Because I need the metadata in it before I can convert it to PDF. So then I take that file that I've put the metadata in, because then it fills out the quick parts, copy it to OneDrive. So even though OneDrive doesn't have any metadata, it doesn't have those same columns, I was kind of wary as to whether that would work or not. Because I'm expecting it, I want it to still have all the data from those columns, but it does work. So I just copy the file over to the OneDrive, and then I do the same exact thing that I demoed earlier and convert it to PDF, and then put it back in SharePoint or send it as an attachment. Okay, so let's go see who this runs as. I will log in as another user and run this other one that we did. You were asking about who it runs as. Let's see. Okay, so this one is, I'm logged in as another user, Billy Bob. And Billy Bob's manager is me. Okay, so that's who the approval will go to. So Billy Bob is going to go, this is the company policies one, the first one that we did. We're testing to see whose OneDrive it uses, with him being the one that triggers it. So this is a, let's see, jury duty company policy, and he is going to trigger that. Let's see. Oh, look at that. He can't trigger it. Do you know why? Because I didn't make him a run-only user. So you have to go out of your way to make sure that you make people a run-only user if you want them to be able to see that flow and trigger it. So I will go over to, this is the flow that I just created, and you can only trigger it if you're a run-only user. So maybe I just want Billy Bob to be able to trigger it. That's not very practical. I probably want everybody in the company. Contoso all. I want everybody, just anybody at all, to be able to trigger it. And I'll just let it. So this means that when that person triggers it, whoever the person is that triggers it, each action will run as them. Or do I want it to run as me, the admin? So potentially for the OneDrive for Business, I can just make it put everybody's OneDrive files in there as me, in my OneDrive. I'm just going to leave all the defaults though. Okay, so now Billy Bob, let's see how long this takes to kick in. Now Billy Bob should be able to see that flow. Oh, thanks, Lisa. Roadmap number 20795. Is that the document sets thing I was talking about? Stuart says, I'm working on a similar, but the agreement is the library content type. Well, does it work that way? Because Stuart, I found that the only way I can get it to work is instead of using a content type, just by having a file in the library and let it use that. The first time I tried doing, that example of like the one I showed you with the statement of work and the quick parts, it didn't work with just having it as the content type, which is the way we've always done it. So I had to just have a file that it copies. But that would be nice if that's fixed now. You never know. Okay, now here, I'm logged in as Billy Bob. Dress code. Oh yeah, flow. There we go. Now he can access it. So that little run as, where it shows a list of people, that is only for manually triggered flows. Okay, so now he started that flow, and let's see if let's go look at what it's doing. It's going to send the approval email to me. And sorry, I've got so many tabs now. It's just insane. Let's see. Leave. Ooh, it failed. So the request manager approval in PDF failed running it as Billy Bob. Aha. Delete file. The file does not exist. Oh. So, that last one that I just added that I didn't test yet, that's the one that it errored out on. That's that last one that I added. So I probably just put like the wrong file identifier or something. I put ID. Let's put identifier. I'll try the one from the actual trigger. I wouldn't think that all these identifiers would be different, but whatever. File ID, there. Okay, that's deleting that's the one that deletes the original document from SharePoint. And I'll test that. So Lisa, the approval emails will just say who the requester is, but those approval emails are always going to come from just this Microsoft Flow. If you do any of the email actions like send email from shared mailbox, send email with options, those are going to be more specific to being able to control who they say they're from. But these approval actions are always just going to say they're from Microsoft Flow. Okay, I proved that one. So what we're really looking to see right now is where it's creating that file. So whose OneDrive is it creating the file in? So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to delete those actions that delete the file because I'm not worried about them right now. I want to just see where it's creating the OneDrive file. Save. I love how fast it is to test these things compared to SharePoint Designer. Okay, it's doing the approval probably. I'll take a second. Is that the new one? No, that's the one I already did. Yeah, here's the new one. Okay, so then the flow is going to keep going. approved it. Blah, 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 blah. Now, we need to go look at OneDrive. So this is, let's see. This is Billy Bob's OneDrive. Let's see if it created it in his OneDrive. Oh, it did. So Billy Bob was the one that triggered it. So that's where it created that file with the OneDrive action. So now let's change this flow. So let's go to the run only users screen and change the flow. So when it does the OneDrive for Business, I want it to use I'm logged in as this account called admin at Wonderlore. That is my current login. And so I want it to use my OneDrive, whenever it creates these temporary OneDrive files. So that's going to be a way that you can use to get around the fact that the user might be new. They might not have a OneDrive. They might not have used their OneDrive yet. Or just not having it create files in random other people's OneDrives. Okay, so now I did that. I changed it. So when it runs, it's going to run as for that one action. It's not going to run as that user. So I'll go ahead and do a different one now as Billy Bob. So I'll do the staff discipline policy, and I'll run that. Okay, that's running as him. And let's see. So it's running. I've got to approve it. And then is it going to create the staff discipline in here? This is a big mess. This is all just demo stuff. Yeah, so there you go. Look, it created staff discipline in my OneDrive, the admin. So that's your way of getting around. So it doesn't, only for manually triggered workflows though, can you do that. So now, instead of putting it as that person in their OneDrive, it's putting it in mine just for that one action. It's running as me. Pretty cool. Craig says, is anyone using this in their companies? How friendly is this from the crew's perspective? The crew, like the end user? Just my, how long will the flow wait for approval? 30 days. Microsoft, okay, so first of all, Craig, I usually find that just in the real world, I don't usually do manually triggered workflows, because then you have to depend on the user knowing to do that. So usually just in the real world, when you're having workflows that do things on files, it's going to be based on the file getting created or getting modified, or, something specific about the file once it gets created or modified, and not have to rely on them manually triggering it. So to me, just in my personal experience of doing workflows for about 10 years, not many of them usually have a requirement of needing to be manually triggered. So usually it's just very automated. So, and then to answer your question about the flow, it waits approval for 30 days. It gives you the ability to change the timeout in here in the settings. It's got a specific syntax that it uses for that of the ISO, the ISO 8601 format, to be able to change if you want the timeout to be shorter. But somebody at Microsoft on the Flow blog recently wrote a post about, if you're concerned about flows being live for 30 days, you want them to be longer, you could do, instead of the action called, instead of the action called start and wait for approval, you would just do create an approval. And that way it's creating it and kicking it off, but not waiting for it. And then you could have, so what they did was they did a separate flow that had a trigger of the common data service, like where the data is actually stored, is a table in there called approvals buried just in the common data service. And then the trigger could be when the person approves it. And that would kick off a different workflow. So that is a way that you could get around if you know how to, if you have the common data service. I'm not sure if that's an extra license cost though. That's why I've been kind of iffy about that one. That's another sort of way potentially that you could do that, is have a separate flow that is only triggered when someone actually does their part of the approval. But I've never tried that. I just read it in a Microsoft blog post just on the regular Microsoft Flow blog last month or so. So yeah. All right, cool. Well, we have 5 minutes left. Okay, so Joelle, yeah, I know you watched the keynote and you were kind of probably paying attention to Twitter some during the week. What are you excited about that they announced this last week?
I think the home site thing, because I know just in some of the work I'm doing, I know the whole thing of making a communication site, the root kind of quote unquote of your internet has been a pretty big deal. So I think that'll be, that whole home site concept will be really helpful.
Oh yeah, because we have a lot of customers that are small and medium-sized businesses, and you have all these just sort of SharePoint home pages that have nothing on them, because it's sort of a daunting undertaking, right, to people when they see this blank home page and they feel like they need to work really hard to figure out what content needs to go on it, have meetings, get, like do it right.
Yeah, also just right now, if you try to make your root site have a modern homepage, it just looks like a team modern homepage, whereas if you're creating communication sites for like other departments, then it looks like those look fancier than your root, which is kind of a little bit backwards. So I think that the home site concept kind of helps with that, because it kind of has that more structured, modern, like designed look to it, versus just like a regular modern team page home.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm super excited about that. And then the page that's currently just the SharePoint home, that will become like kind of like remember my site?
Yeah, personalized.
Kind of personalized stuff, and that will be like really awesome, just all personalized news for you, documents for you, your saved bookmarks, and everything about you that's personalized for the logged in user. And, Jeremy says importing an Excel file to a list and being able to edit the field types.
Yeah, that was cool. I saw that.
Yeah, and SharePoint used to be able to do that, so they're adding it back. Renaming sites. I know, that's so funny. That's such a small thing, and that's so huge to people. We sat there at the lunch table and just kind of asked people around the table what was their favorite thing, and they were all just so excited about being able to rename the URLs for SharePoint sites. All right, well, let's see. Lisa Jo is asking about that common data service thing. I'm going to look that up, and I'll put it in. I'll have to see if I can find that. So I'll put that just in the chat window for you whenever I find that link. Yeah, again, I saw it, but I didn't actually try it out. I just kind of got the gist of what they were talking about. But yeah. Next week, hopefully, Joelle will have something one of those major things they talked about that we can demo. Mm-hmm. We'll just see. We'll just kind of wing it between now and then and see what, what's out there. Bruce says, did Microsoft talk about allowing guest users to access Power Apps? I don't know if they did. I didn't see.
I know it's been in user voice forever, but I'm not sure if there's been any announcements.
Yeah, I'm not sure. All right. And it was so fun getting to meet some of you in person at the SharePoint conference. That was awesome. Putting the names to the faces and all that. Cool. All right. Good to see you all. Thanks for coming to Power Hour. I will go find that link for you. And until next time, and go to the #ideas channel to type any ideas, and I'll kind of ponder those too. All right. I'll see y'all next time. Bye.